Ready for part two.
Part two. And I think I left off that I had done solo sail to Japan to raise awareness about the dolphin slaughter in Taiji, and I just missed that record by 1 day, which was kind of tough. But I did get some publicity. And then the sail back was in honor of Corky. So we sailed back, and I had a friend of mine, Scotty, come over. So we did a double-handed sail back to Victoria. From there, we went up to OrcaLab. And then from there we came down the coast, and we arrived in San Francisco on 9/11, 2001, the 9/11.
Oh.
So that was a pretty traumatic day, and I did plan to go down to San Diego, but that sort of changed the plans. So in lieu of sailing the boat down there, I decided I would do a Corky story, and this is what it turned into.
Nice.
And take it on the road and show it in San Diego. And that's exactly what I did. So I went down there and put on 3 presentations of Corky's story with these storyboards and the Corky banner all laid out.
Wow.
And one, it was at a college, I forget which college, it might have been San Diego State, but I invited the media, and 3 network, local TV stations showed up with their cameras. So we got on TV, and they did manage to get SeaWorld on there too to give their statement. So anyway, we got some publicity for Corky, and so I want to show you, this is what was my own little one-man show.
Wow.
And I built these boards to tell the story of Corky's life. It starts out with her apod family as part of the northern residence right here. And then there's OrcaLab right there. This is Vancouver Island, and the southern residents are down there. And this is Pender Harbor, where Corky was captured.
Okay.
And this is the picture right here of the capture of Corky as a 4-year-old baby with her mom.
Okay.
And they took her and sold her off to Marineland initially. And this is a more detail of Garden Bay, where the fishermen drove the pod in there, and then they put the nets up, and then they took Corky. And then this section is her life in captivity, starting at Marineland, and the tragedy of her having 6 babies that none lived more than 2 months.
Yeah.
And some died and stillborn, and there was a problem with the nursing. Whether she really didn't know how, or didn't have her family pod and others to help. But the tragedy is, there's a picture of Corky and her babies.
Okay.
And SeaWorld didn't know how to help either. So there you have it. 6 and maybe a 7th baby died. And this was another tragic event that you may have heard about during one of the shows. There was another whale named Candu who had a baby that was a bit, I guess there was some tension between Candu and Corky, and during the show, Candu rammed Corky. Boom, right? Did it.
This was in
with her jaw
Blackfish.
during a
This
show.
was in Blackfish, this part, right?
Yes, it was in Blackfish.
Yeah.
Blood spattered all over, and Candu fractured her jaw and died right there during the show.
Wow.
And then the irony of the whole thing, we know Corky's an incredibly loving whale. She took over as the mother for the orchid Candu's baby. And Corky does that, as they told you, right? That she kind of helps any of the new whales that come in.
Yeah, they said she is the matriarch and caring, and
she's
takes
the most
care.
gentle, and the trainers have told me that a new trainer, they always start with Corky because she's such a gentle, wonderful whale.
Welcomes the newcomers.
And so this is the Free Corky project that Paul Spong started many years ago, and started the children's banner. It became a worldwide effort. It gone to Europe a couple of times, and just grew and grew, and it's almost 2 miles long. And you can see this was displayed in the state capitol in Olympia, and then it went on tour, and you heard David Howitt talk about his tours in Corky's Freedom Bus. And then once I came back from Japan, we got into displaying the banner on Thursday's Child, my boat, and we made a free Corky spinnaker that we'd fly.
Very nice.
And we did a tour all the way down from OrcaLab down to Friday Harbor, stopping at ports along the way. Check this one out. The banner all hanging all around the boat. Invited people on board and told them all about Corky. So that was a lot of fun. And then the whole time we had been sending and making appeals to Anheuser-Busch, because they were the owner of SeaWorld at that time, for a retirement plan for Corky. And of course they never took it seriously. They never wanted to do anything about that. We felt like with all those years of in captivity, she deserved to be retired. And then we made a plan where they would do a health assessment, and then once she's cleared, she could be flown up to this harbor called Dongchong Bay, which is right next to OrcaLab. And look at this beautiful, here it is right here, this beautiful deep bay. It's a perfect halfway house or sanctuary. They could put a net up right there. And her family swims by their A5 pod quite often. There's a picture of Paul and his wife. I mean, it's a very doable plan, and it still is. At that time, we were advocating that she be released to her family. That wouldn't happen unless we're absolutely certain she was catching fish, she could handle a life in the wild. If not, that would be her retirement home in her natural home waters. Way more healthy than living in a tank at SeaWorld. So this is an interesting little story about Corky's. It's A5 pod. It originally had 19 members. It's devastated by the two captures in 1968-69. They took 13 members.
Wow.
They've all died in captivity except Corky. But Corky still does have some of the members of A5 pod that are still there. Her mother, unfortunately, died in 1999 because we were trying to unite her with her mother, which would have been the best of all worlds. But she still has members of her A5 pod that are speaking the same dialect that she could connect with. So that's
recent picture. A5.
That's a picture of the pod.
They're still out there.
And they're still out there. Yep.
Bottom line.
Bottom line, Corky has done a lot for people, entertaining and educating them for over 30 years, which is now over 40 years. She has a chance to return to a life with her family in the wild. In fairness, we should give her that chance. If we do not, Corky will die a lonely death in a concrete tank far from home, which is true. She's an exceptional orca. She's the longest surviving captive whale in the world.
Yeah.
So you got to give a lot of credit to Corky for being this exceptional orca whale. And she still could go home.
Yeah.
It could happen. We just got to put the pressure on SeaWorld enough.
Yeah.
And they actually have the trainers and the capability of helping her come to the wild, back to the wild in a retirement situation, a sea pen, and they could take care of her there, and actually people could come and see her.
Yeah.
You know,
nice.
it still could be that sort of situation where people could come and visit Corky, and I think it'd go a long way to improve the image of SeaWorld. We could even support them instead of always fighting with them.